The first time Graham Voss spoke my dead wife's name, he used it as a crowbar. He stood on my lawn holding a county notice and told me Carol would have hated to see it get this bad. That was when he made himself my problem, because Carol did not just love this lake house. She prepared for men exactly like Graham Voss. 3 years after her funeral, she was still protecting me with a binder he did not know existed. By the time Graham told me my dock was a hazard, he had already moved 1 boundary stake, misquoted 2 county rules, and convinced 3 neighbors I was too old to understand lake property. He said it gently. Men like Graham always do. "Mike," he told me, standing on my own grass with sunglasses hooked in the collar of a linen shirt, "this place has become a liability. Liability is what men like Graham call love when they want the real estate." I was 82 years old. I had a heart doctor, a pill organizer, and 2 7-pound Yorkies who believed sunrise was a contractual obligation. But I also had my eyesight, my hearing, and 47 years of knowing when a man was trying to sell me my own surrender. What Graham did not know was that Carol had worried about the lake house before she died. My wife had left a binder, and inside that binder was the first proof that the new neighbor wanted more than a view of the water. But I did not find the binder first. I found the dead scorpion first, which seemed about right for Texas. It was under the kitchen sink at 5:42 in the morning. Bonnie announced it with the moral outrage of a church bell. Lucy stood behind her, prepared to support whatever lawsuit Bonnie intended to file. "Nobody touch that," I said. I had not been back to Cypress Bend in 3 years. Not since Carol's illness turned every trip into a calculation and then into an impossibility. The lake house sat on the Texas side of a long brown-green lake that was not famous enough to attract movie stars and not quiet enough to be forgotten by men with money. Carol used to say it was exactly the right amount of ordinary. The place smelled like cedar closets, dust, old sunscreen, and closed-up summer. I opened windows one at a time. Somewhere outside, a boat motor coughed across the water and gave up. Bonnie and Lucy trotted through the rooms as if taking inventory on Carol's behalf. Bonnie sniffed the braided rug. Lucy inspected the baseboards. Both of them paused at Carol's porch chair. It was still there. White wicker, blue cushion. A little sunken in the middle where she used to sit with coffee and a paperback, she claimed she was reading while watching everybody else. I had meant to cover it before we left the last time. I had meant to do many things. Grief is full of unfinished maintenance. I made coffee in the old percolator because Carol always said it made coffee honest. While it muttered on the counter, I swept the scorpion into a dustpan and carried it outside. The porch boards complained under my feet. The lake lay beyond the cypress trees, pewter under morning cloud. Our dock reached into it at a slight angle, like an old man pointing at something he forgot the name of. "Well," I said to the dogs, "we're here." Bonnie sneezed. That was the first honest review. The first neighbor arrived before 7. June Whitcomb came up the gravel path with a covered dish in her hands and a visor on her head. June had been 70 for at least 15 years and had enough opinions to qualify as infrastructure. "Michael Mercer," she said, "you look terrible." "Good morning to you too. I mean emotionally, physically you look annoying." I took the dish. "What is it? Breakfast casserole or apology casserole? Depends how guilty you want me to feel for not calling more." That did something to me I was not prepared for. I looked past her toward the lake so she would not have to see it land. June saw anyway. "Carol would be glad you're here," she said. Carol would ask why the porch rail has mildew. Also that. Behind June, a black pickup eased to a stop at the old Price place next door. For 30 years it had belonged to Annabelle Price, who wore straw hats with silk scarves and once told a county inspector that his clipboard did not make him Moses. Annabelle died the winter after Carol. The place had sold before spring. A man stepped out. Late 50s, maybe early 60s. Silver at the temples. Tan the way money tans. evenly and on purpose. Boat shoes that had never been asked to work. June's mouth flattened. "That Graham Voss?" I asked. "That's him." "You like him?" "I like buttered toast. I tolerate Graham." Graham lifted a hand and gave the kind of neighborly wave that includes ownership of the air between you. I waved back. Carol always said manners are free and occasionally useful as camouflage. Graham came over at 9 with kolaches from town and a smile practiced in expensive mirrors. "Mr. Mercer," he said. "Graham Voss, I'm next door now." "Mike," I said. He smiled like he had been waiting to be invited into my first name. "Mike, then. Figured your first morning back could use something decent." They were good kolaches. That annoyed me. Graham looked around the porch with admiration, just polished enough to be inspection. "Carol loved this place," he said. People had learned to say that to me. Sometimes it was comfort. Sometimes it was a key they were trying in a lock. "She did," I said. "Must be hard coming back alone." There it was, the first sound of a shoe finding soft ground. "I'm not alone," I said. Bonnie barked once from the doorway, timing it like a witness. Graham bent as if to greet her, and Lucy retreated behind my ankle. Lucy trusted anyone with toast, but had strong feelings about cologne. Graham straightened. "If you need anything, I'm right there. I know these older lake houses can surprise a man." Houses are like that, especially at our age. Our age. He was at least 20 years short of earning that phrase from me. I thanked him for the kolaches and did not invite him inside. That afternoon, Ray Delgado's boat refused to start at the public ramp. 3 men stood around it offering theories, which is the traditional way men prolong a mechanical problem. Ray saw me and pointed. "Mercer, you still got ears?" "2, neither under warranty." He turned the key. The engine clicked, tried, caught half a breath, and died. I listened to the second try and asked Ray to stop. "Not the pump," I said. "You don't know that." "I know enough not to buy one." I leaned over the battery compartment. The ground cable had green corrosion blooming at the terminal. "Loose ground," I said. Ray squinted. "You sure?" "No, I'm old. We only guess now." 10 minutes with a wire brush, a wrench, and language Carol would have pretended not to hear, and the engine settled into a low, satisfied rumble. "Carol always said you could hear a machine lying," Ray said. "She heard people too." Across the ramp, Graham watched from beside a white truck with a company logo on the door, Voss Shoreline Holdings. The letters were small, tasteful, and expensive. He looked amused. "Men who underestimate you often enjoy your little tricks right up until the trick is evidence." By the 3rd day, the lake house began remembering me. The back door stuck unless I lifted the knob. The pantry light flickered until I tightened the bulb. The second stair to the dock had a loose screw. I made a list on the yellow pad Carol used to keep by the phone. Replace porch rail screws, clean gutters, check dock cleats, buy dog food. Do not cry over wicker chair before breakfast. A man needs realistic goals. The dogs loved the lake once they understood it was not a bathtub. Bonnie patrolled the dock in short, official bursts. Lucy sat under Carol's chair and watched dragonflies. People came by. Cal and Denise Porter brought peaches and apologies. Tessa Nguyen, the new Lake Association president, introduced herself with a clipboard in the tired eyes of a woman who had inherited 6 committees and 4 feuds. Maddie Price came by last. She was 16, maybe 17, with Annabelle's chin. She stood at the edge of the driveway and looked at the old Price house next door like it had betrayed her. "You Mrs. Price's granddaughter?" I asked. "Maddie." "I'm Mike." "I know. Grandma said your wife made the best lemon cake and knew where every rule was buried." That sounded like Carol. Maddie looked at Bonnie and Lucy. "Can I pet them?" Bonnie requires references. Lucy accepts most forms of tribute. Maddie smiled for the first time. "Grandma didn't want to sell," Maddie said. She said it without preparation, as if the sentence had been standing behind her all morning, waiting for a door. "What makes you say that?" She loved that place. Then after she got sick, people kept telling her it was too much, that she was being selfish, hanging on to it. People? Maddie looked next door. Graham's contractor was measuring near the fence line. People, she said. That evening Graham came by with a folder. Of course he did. The sun had gone orange over the water. I was tightening the dock cleats while Bonnie supervised from a safe distance. "Mike," Graham called. "Got a minute?" "One exactly." He smiled. He liked me better when he thought I was amusing. "I don't want to be intrusive, but my surveyor noticed your dock might be outside the current setback." "Current? Rules change." He opened the folder. "These older installations can become complicated. Insurance companies are getting aggressive. One accident and your kids could be dealing with a nightmare." "My dock was permitted in 1998, I said. "I'm sure it was, but permitted then isn't always compliant now." "Did your surveyor say that?" He flagged it as something to review. That was not an answer. Graham looked toward the porch, where Carol's chair sat in the sunset. "I'll be honest," he said. "I've been buying and restoring a few places along this stretch, keeping them from falling into short-term rental chaos. Your property is special. I'd make you a generous offer." "I haven't said I'm selling." "Not today." He softened his voice. "But you may not want this much responsibility forever." There it was again. Responsibility translated into surrender. I took the folder. "I'll look at it." No pressure. Inside were printed aerial photos, a highlighted paragraph from Lake Association rules, and a polite letter offering to buy my property for less than Carol and I had paid in sweat. The highlighted paragraph did not mention my dock. It mentioned new construction. I read it twice. Carol would have said, "Find the noun, Mike. The noun will tell you who is lying." New construction. My dock was not new. The next morning, a notice appeared on my porch. Lake Association concern form. Nuisance animals. Excessive barking. Bonnie read it with me and looked offended on behalf of due process. The complaint was anonymous, and this one wore boat shoes. I walked to June's. She was on the screened porch shelling peas into a bowl. "Do my dogs bark excessively?" "Bonnie barks with purpose. Lucy barks when democracy fails." June. "No, they don't." She took the paper and read it. Her face changed. "He's done this before," she said. "Graham?" "With Annabelle. Different angle. He told people her dock was rotting. Told the association she had memory trouble because she missed 2 meetings. Annabelle missed meetings because she couldn't drive at night after cataract surgery." "Did Carol know?" June looked away. "Carol knew everything eventually." She handed the complaint back. "She told me once if anything ever got ugly out here, I should remind you about the storm shutters." "Storm shutters?" "She said you would never look there unless weather or trouble made you." That afternoon, I went looking for the storm shutters. Behind the storm shutters, fishing rods, and Christmas lights we never used there, I found a blue-gray binder with Carol's handwriting on the spine. Storm shutters, dock permits, and things Mike will pretend he remembers. For a minute I could not move. It is a strange cruelty, finding handwriting after death. A voice enters and leaves. Handwriting stays in the room and waits for you to catch up. I carried the binder to the kitchen table. Bonnie and Lucy followed because grief often sounds like snack packaging. Inside were plastic sleeves. Dock permit, 1998. Shoreline survey, 2004. Insurance photographs. Repair receipts. A hand-drawn map Carol had made of the boundary markers with dates beside each photograph. On the first page, clipped to the permit, was a note. "Mike, if you are reading this because you are finally pretending to remember where the storm shutters are, I forgive you. If you are reading this because someone next door is using rules as a crowbar, Call Lila Reyes before you sign anything or argue with anyone in public, especially if he says he is only worried about safety. Love, C. Below that, in smaller writing, the lake makes lonely people valuable to the wrong sort of man. I sat there until the coffee went cold. Carol had been gone 3 years. Still, somehow, she had reached across all that absence and put a tool in my hand. Not a miracle. Better, a record. Lila Reyes answered on the second ring. If this is about the Lake Association treasury, I resigned and I remain spiritually unavailable. Mrs. Reyes, Mike Mercer. Silence. Then softer. Carol's Mike. Yes, ma'am. Did somebody finally try you? I looked at the binder. Yes. She arrived the next morning in a red sedan older than some marriages. Lila was 78, small, straight-backed, with silver hair cut at her jaw and sunglasses that made her look like she had subpoenaed the sun. She brought 2 file boxes and a thermos. At the kitchen table, Lila opened the binder and touched Carol's note with 2 fingers. She worried about this place, Lila said. Not the boards or roof. People. Graham Voss? Not by name, by type. Lila had worked 32 years in the county clerk's office. She knew deeds, easements, liens, and the difference between a mistake and a strategy. Graham bought Annabelle Price's property through an LLC, she said. Then he bought the 2 lots past her under another one. Same mailing address. He is assembling frontage. For what? Luxury rentals if he tells the truth. Private compound if he has better financing. Either way, your lot blocks his clean line. She pulled out a photocopy of a letter Annabelle had written Carol 8 months before she died. Carol, the man next door keeps saying the lake is too much for me. He knows I am tired. That does not make him right. If anything happens, please remember I did not invite him to handle my affairs. A. I read it once and felt something old and hot move through my chest. Not rage. Rage is loud. This was quieter. Recognition. Predators do not always break windows. Sometimes they bring estimates. Lila watched me carefully. Do not storm over there, she said. I am 82. I storm at a medically responsible pace. Good. We will use paper. Paper ages better than outrage. That was exactly the sort of woman Carol would have liked. Sometimes the best thing an old man can do is look beatable. For 3 days, I let Graham think his little machine was working. I answered politely. I did not correct the neighbors asking whether the dock was safe. At night, Lila and I sat at Carol's kitchen table with permits, photographs, association minutes, and county phone numbers spread between us like parts on a workbench. On the second morning, I called the county inspector myself, not to complain, to invite him. Bring the old permit file if you have it, I said, and wear comfortable shoes. We started with the survey. Carol's photograph showed 3 boundary markers. The third in her photo sat 2 feet lakeward of a flat limestone rock shaped like a mitten. In my yard, the marker sat on the other side of the rock. Land does not move, politely. I knelt beside it while Maddie held the old photograph. That is not where Grandma's was, she said. No. Can he do that? A man can do almost anything with a shovel. The question is whether he can survive the paperwork. Maddie smiled, then looked like she felt guilty for it. My dad said Grandma was confused at the end. Was she? Sometimes. Not about the house. Never about that. I put the old photo beside the new marker and took a picture. Maddie looked toward Graham's place. His crew was installing new black metal fencing, the kind that says rustic while billing like a cardiologist. He told her keeping the property was selfish, she said. That if she sold while she was still alive, she could help us. Did he offer enough? She laughed once. It had no joy in it. My dad says it was fair because the place needed work. But Graham started work the week after closing. That Saturday was the dock supper. Carol had loved Doc's supper. Everybody brought folding chairs, deviled eggs, brisket, fruit salad, and desserts named by women who refused to write measurements down. I nearly did not go. Then I saw June standing on her porch in a blue dress, holding a serving dish, and not moving. Her husband had been the man who grilled at Doc's supper. 3 years gone, same as Carol. I walked over with Bonnie and Lucy. "You coming?" I asked. "I made potato salad. Strong first step. I hate everyone. Also, traditional." She looked toward the water. "He used to carry the big cooler." I nodded. "I can carry potato salad," I said. "Coolers are outside my current medical plan." June laughed despite herself. It was small and cracked, but it counted. We walked down together. I did not tell her she was brave. At the supper, Graham worked the crowd. He had brought smoked ribs from a place in town and stood with Tessa and Nguyen near the picnic tables, pointing toward my dock. Tessa looked uncomfortable when she saw me. "Mike," she said, "I was going to call." That sentence has never improved my day. She gave a tired smile. "There are concerns about your dock." "Graham's concerns?" "Community concerns," he said. "Mike, nobody wants trouble. But if a structure is out of compliance and someone gets hurt..." "Which rule?" He blinked. "Excuse me?" "Which rule? Number, section, date?" He smiled again. I had begun to dislike that smile, the way a man dislikes a leak he cannot find. "I don't have the citation memorized." "You highlighted it in the packet you gave me." "Then you have it." "I do. It applies to new construction." Tessa looked at him. Graham's face did not change much. Just enough. "That may be one interpretation." "Words do have that burden," I said, "and meaning things." Ray Delgado coughed into his napkin. Tessa held out her hand. "Mike, may I see your permit records? Monday morning, with Lila Reyes." That changed the air. Graham knew Lila. Good. The week after that, things got less friendly. An insurance inspector called about a complaint he would not name. A contractor I had not hired brought a dock replacement estimate. Someone left a note saying barking dogs lower property values. Bonnie took that personally. I kept records, dates, times, names, photographs. Carol had taught me that memory is good, but paper is what people argue with when they run out of charm. On Wednesday, Graham came over without kolaches. That alone was an escalation. "Mike," he said, "I hear you've been stirring up old anxieties." I thought I was asking questions. "Same thing sometimes." He stood by the porch rail and looked past me into the house. Men like Graham are always measuring. "I'm prepared to make a better offer," he said. "Clean, quick. You could walk away from the maintenance and the worry." My wife loved this place. "I'm sure she did," he said. "But at some point we have to be responsible enough to let the next generation enjoy what we have had." I felt my hand close on the porch rail. There are sentences that reveal the whole animal. "That sounds generous," I said. He softened his voice. "I only meant that the living have to be practical." Carol was practical. Then she would understand. That was the mistake. Not the boundary marker. Not the complaint. Not the insulting offer. The theft of her agreement. I looked at Graham and thought of Warren Vale in Ohio, another man who had tried to use a dead woman's name as a borrowed key. "You did not know my wife," I said. He spread his hands. "I know properties. That is not the same as knowing what belongs to people." Graham waited for me to keep talking. I did not. "We're done here," I said. The association meeting happened Friday at the little community hall, with bad acoustics and good air conditioning. Graham arrived in a navy blazer. Lila arrived with 2 file boxes and a face that suggested clerical violence. Maddie came with her father, who looked like a man hoping grief would not ask him to testify. I brought Carol's binder. Bonnie and Lucy stayed with June, who promised not to teach them profanity unless provoked. Graham spoke first because men like Graham trust beginnings. He talked about safety, modernization, responsible stewardship, and aging infrastructure. He did not once say the word buy. That was how I knew buying was the point. Then Tessa called on me. I stood slowly, not for drama. Knees. My dock was permitted in 1998, I said. The rule Mr. Voss cited applies to new construction. My repairs or maintenance under the existing permit. Lila handed Tessa the copy. The boundary marker near the south riprap was moved, I said. Carol photographed its location in 2004, 2012, and 2019. Current photographs show it 2 feet inland from the historical position. Maddie looked down at her hands. I kept going. Annabelle Price wrote my wife before she died. She said a man next door was pressuring her to sell and implying she was selfish to keep her property. Graham stood. That is outrageous. Lila did not look up from her folder. Sit down, Graham. We are still in nouns. Ray made a sound that might have been a cough and might have been joy. I looked at Maddie's father. I am not here to shame a family for making a hard decision. Illness makes everything complicated, but pressure is not care. A low offer is not mercy, and age does not make a person's home available to whoever speaks softly enough. The room went quiet. Tessa reviewed the documents. The county inspector, who had been invited by me and encouraged by Lila, looked deeply unhappy to be useful and confirmed the old permit language. The association tabled the complaint. Then Tessa asked Graham whether any of his contractors had touched the boundary marker. Graham smiled, less well this time. Absolutely not. Maddie raised her hand. Nobody expected that. My grandmother made copies, she said. Her father turned to her. Maddie, a 2019 survey. Notarized. She kept one in her Bible because she said men respect offices more than old women. The county inspector looked at Tessa. Tessa looked at Lila. Lila looked at Graham as if he were a typo she had waited years to correct. Maddie's copy matched Carol's photographs, 2 feet lakeward of Graham's marker, exactly where the old permit file said the line belonged. Graham did not confess. People like Graham rarely offer you the satisfaction of a clean ending. He blamed survey confusion, contractor error, old markers. His attorney sent a letter with enough commas to hide a barn, but he withdrew the complaint. The dock stayed. His offer disappeared. And within 2 weeks, 3 other property owners asked Lila to look at their paperwork. That was how trouble spread backward. Not as gossip, as evidence. On my last evening at Cypress Bend, I cleaned Carol's porch chair. I used warm water, a soft brush, and a towel that had once been yellow. Bonnie sat beside me as if supervising restoration. Lucy slept under the chair, already certain it belonged to her. June came over with 2 glasses of iced tea. You staying through summer? She asked. Some of it? Good. Ray needs someone to annoy. He has you. Professionals need peers. We sat on the porch and watched the lake turn copper. Across the water, a boy shouted. Somewhere a screen door slammed. I opened Carol's binder one more time. In the back pocket, behind the survey photos, was a small envelope I had missed. Mike, if the lake hurts when you go back, let it. Pain is not always a warning to leave. Sometimes it is proof that love was there long enough to change the furniture. Do not make a museum out of us. Open the windows. Fix what breaks. Let the dogs ruin something inexpensive. Invite people onto the porch. And if a man with shiny shoes tells you the place is too much for you, ask him what he plans to do with it after he saves you from it. Love, C. I read it twice. Then I put it back because some things are not meant to be held too long at once. The next morning I opened the front door, and Bonnie and Lucy stepped into the Texas light like they owned the weather. The porch smelled like cedar, lake mud, and coffee. The dock still leaned a little. So did I. But leaning is not the same as falling. I walked down to the water with the dogs at my heels. The lake moved against the boards, patient as breath. Carol had not left me the lake house so I could guard it like a shrine. She left it so I would remember that grief can have a shoreline and still not be the end of the water. And she loved me well enough to leave the surface.